Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us and, well, really get under the skin of the ideas, pulling out the key insights, maybe some surprising bits.
Trying to make sense of it all without the overload.
Exactly. And today we're digging into the book, Human Reality, Who We Are and Why We Exist. And specifically, we're looking at it, as you asked, through a Christian perspective.
Right. And this book, it's very direct, very confident in its exploration of some huge questions. Where do we come from? Why are we here? What is reality?
Yeah, it covers a lot. Things like universal reality, human essence, even a perfect universe. The author definitely puts forward a strong viewpoint.
Absolutely, across all the chapters.
And it jumps right into those big questions, doesn't it? Like, why are humans seemingly unique in self-awareness compared to other animals?
It's a core one it raises.
And, this human capacity for incredible love, but also terrible misery and just that basic need we have to find meaning.
Powerful starting points. Where does it begin with our origins?
Okay, yeah, let's dive into that, the creation aspect.
So the book puts forward this idea of advanced creators.
Advanced creators, meaning?
Described as highly evolved humans, beings with the power to sort of organize matter and even give free will to what they create.
Okay, and this is presented as an alternative to the Big Bang.
Yeah, the author seems to find the Big Bang theory, well, a bit illogical. Doesn't quite add up for them.
Interesting. So comparing that immediately to a Christian perspective, you've got a concept of a creator there too, obviously.
Right, but it's quite different. Christian theology talks about a divine creator, God, who is fundamentally distinct from creation, all-powerful, transcendent.
Whereas these advanced creators are humans, which is very advanced ones.
That's how the book frames it, yes.
Yeah.
Beings within the universe, not outside of it, in the same way God is understood in Christianity.
So it immediately changes the dynamic. The Christian idea of creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing.
Exactly. That's a core difference. This book seems to imply creation more like arrangement, perhaps, by beings who are themselves part of the cosmos.
Which raises questions about ultimate origins, doesn't it? Where did those creators come from? But okay, moving on. What about purpose?
Yeah.
Why are we here, according to the book?
The book is pretty clear on this. It says humans uniquely seek meaning, and the sort of general answer it lands on is happiness.
Happiness. That's the reason for existence.
Achieving happiness, yes. That's stated as why we exist within this true reality the book describes.
How does that track with Christian ideas about purpose?
Well, Christian teaching often focuses more on, say, serving God, loving your neighbor, living according to divine will.
So less about individual happiness as the ultimate goal.
Joy and fulfillment can definitely be part of it, outcomes even, but maybe not the primary driving purpose in the same way the book frames it. It's more theocentric, focused on God, rather than purely anthropocentric, focused on human happiness.
Right. It makes you think about things like suffering or self-sacrifice, which have a significant place in Christian thought, but might seem counterintuitive if pure happiness is the only goal.
That's a very important point, yeah.
Oh.
The framework is just different.
Okay, now this next bit sounds really intriguing. The book introduces something called a human essence.
Yes, the essence. It's described as non-physical, something that holds our memories and operates at a higher energy level than the physical brain.
Non-physical, like a soul.
There are parallels you could draw, maybe. The book says this essence enters the body at birth, leaves at death.
And it carries memories.
Yes, and interestingly, it supposedly holds perfect memories from what the book calls a primordial world.
A primordial world. Perfect memories.
Right. And these memories apparently subconsciously drive our desire to improve things, our sense that things aren't quite right now. It's like this echo of perfection. It's presented as the core of our consciousness and identity surviving the body.
So it's this innate feeling that things could be better because we, or this essence, remembers a time when they were perfect.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
How does that compare to Christian ideas of the soul or spirit?
Well, Christianity certainly talks about an immaterial soul or spirit, often seen as eternal and directly created by God. So there's a similarity in the idea of a non-physical part of us that persists.
But the origin is different.
Very different. The Christian soul's origin is divine. The nature and origin of this essence in the book, connected to these primordial memories and advanced creators, it's quite distinct from that theological understanding.
Okay. And this primordial perfect world it mentions, tell us more about that. It sounds almost Edenic.
It does have that feel, doesn't it? The book paints this picture of an original, flawless state. Humans living in harmony, no disease, no hard labor for food.
Wow. And what about animals?
Animals apparently existed mainly to help plants in this primordial world. It's all very harmonious.
Yeah, the parallels with the Garden of Eden before the fall are pretty hard to miss.
Striking similarities, a perfect, untainted beginning, absence of suffering.
But the reason for that state is different in each framework, right? The Bible attributes Eden to God's direct creation.
Whereas the book attributes this primordial world to these advanced creators. And crucially, the reason we're not there anymore is also explained differently.
How so? Why aren't we in that perfect world now, according to the book?
The book argues that our current imperfect world was intentionally created
Intentionally imperfect. Why?
as a second stage of development. The idea is that we needed to experience the opposite of perfection, unhappiness, inequality, struggle in order to truly understand and appreciate the perfect state.
So imperfection is like a lesson by design.
That's the concept presented, a necessary contrast.
Okay, that is a major departure from the Christian understanding.
Absolutely. The Christian view attributes the world's fallen state, its imperfection and suffering, largely to sin, specifically the consequences of humanity's choice, the fall of man.
So one sees imperfection as a designed educational tool. The other sees it as a consequence of moral failure.
Precisely. Both acknowledge imperfection, but the why is fundamentally different.
What about free will? Does the book touch on that?
Oh, very much so. It emphasizes that humans possess unique free will, that we're not just operating on pre-programmed instincts like other animals. This allows for our independence, our choices, our individuality.
And that aligns pretty closely with Christian doctrine, doesn't it?
It does. Free will is absolutely central to Christian theology. It's the basis for moral responsibility, for the capacity to choose faith, to choose good or evil. So definite agreement on the existence and importance of free will.
Right. Now, the book also looks forward, suggesting there might be advanced human societies elsewhere in the universe.
Yes, it posits these societies exist, possessing superior knowledge, technology, and it hints at a future where maybe humanity learns to live peacefully, potentially with some intervention or guidance from these beings.
How does that future vision sit alongside Christian eschatology, the beliefs about end times?
Well, Christian belief also speaks of a future perfect state, the new heaven and new earth, often connected with Christ's return. So there's a parallel in the hope for a perfect future.
But the means are different.
Very different. The book's future seems potentially driven by human advancement or interaction with other advanced humans. Christian eschatology is rooted in divine action, God's ultimate plan unfolding.
Okay. What about morality in our current imperfect state? How does the book explain our struggles?
It tends to attribute our moral failings, things like greed, conflict, etc., largely to the imperfections of this world, and even our physical brains being part of this imperfect stage.
So if the environment were perfect, the negative behaviors would just disappear.
That seems to be the suggestion, that the motivations for such behaviors are tied to this imperfect state.
Which again contrasts with the Christian perspective on sin.
Right. Christianity generally views sin as deeper than just a reaction to environment. It's seen as more inherent in our fallen nature, requiring divine grace and redemption, not just a change of scenery, so to speak. The struggle is internal as well as external.
Got it. And one last concept, the book mentions angels.
Yes, but with a specific definition, not supernatural beings in the typical sense. They're described as advanced humans, maybe from a group called Solarians who monitor the universe.
Monitor? How?
They apparently record all energy thoughts, actions, everything. There's also mention of an overseer responsible for each solar system's development.
Okay, the terminology immediately makes you think of biblical angels and God's oversight.
The parallels in function are there: observing, recording, overseeing. But again, the crucial difference in the book is that these are presented as highly advanced humans or human-like beings, operating within the natural laws of the universe, as the book describes them.
Not supernatural messengers of a transcendent God.
Exactly. It consistently maintains that naturalistic, albeit highly advanced, framework for these entities.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've taken a deep dive into human reality, specifically looking at it as requested through a Christian lens. We've touched on its ideas about advanced human creators versus a divine creator.
Its focus on happiness as purpose versus purpose centered on God.
This concept of a non-physical essence with primordial memories compared to the Christian soul.
The idea of a primordial perfect world and an intentionally imperfect current world.
Contrasting that with the Garden of Eden and the fall.
We noted the agreement on the importance of free will.
and looked at the differing views on the future, on morality, and on beings like angels and overseers.
And throughout, we've tried to pinpoint where the ideas might resonate thematically, but also where the fundamental explanations diverge quite significantly from standard Christian theology.
Right. And just to be clear, this comparison is purely informational. We're exploring the ideas in the book alongside Christian thought, not endorsing one over the other.
Absolutely. The goal was to unpack the book's core concepts and offer those points of comparison.
We hope this deep dive has given you some useful insights, some things to think about, without being too overwhelming.
And maybe it leaves you with a final thought to ponder.
Mm.
Could exploring different philosophical or cosmological ideas, even ones that contrast sharply with your own beliefs, actually enrich or deepen your understanding of your own faith and these big questions about life, the universe, and everything?
Something to reflect on, definitely. How does encountering different maps help you understand your own territory?